let me just give us a little bit of background on how this all started. This started in the year 2000, where I figured out that we need to have a 5-year program for people to be considered spiritually educated, or lay the foundation. And I have devised 5 separate topics, and each one takes a full year, academic year, or 8 months to cover. And last year, for the first year, we covered the constitution of man, which is how the human body is constituted in its subtle and material constitution. So this year we are going to cover the higher worlds, or the other worlds. It's a fantastic topic, and it's going to take us 8 monthly seminars. So it's once a month for 8 months, and it's the second Sunday of each month, and that will be for 3 hours. And I will cover different topics, and you have the schedule of the topics, reading materials if you wish to read, and that's a handout, or you can download it from the website. So what are we going to cover? Higher dimensions and other worlds. We will learn about the higher levels of existence. What is beyond the physical plane? Because we all know there is something beyond this material earthly life, and that is why we're here. Something in us, our heart is pulled toward this information, and so we want to know. That's the first thing. Second, we want to know why meditation counts. Why does prayer count? Why does reading and study count? Why does karma count? So we want to know the life of causes, or the realm of causes. We want to know about us as souls. How does that work? Why are we a soul and then we do funny things? You know, we're not always behaving like souls, so what is the problem here? And then we're going to learn about the solar angel, communication with the higher worlds, and so on. I have great topics chosen for us from the book Other Worlds. And my main reason for this is because we need to dissipate illusions, glamours, misconceptions about the higher worlds. It's very, very important. Human beings, all of humanity is moving into a new direction, and we need to find out how to get to that new direction. So we're going to dispel our own illusions and glamours, and the illusions and glamours that's all over the world. So by this methodical study and reading, we are going to get real. Okay? We're going to try to understand what is this realm of reality. So how can you participate in these studies? There are 3 different ways, and you can choose your own method. You can come here if you're in town, or we are going to videotape these lectures, so if you miss a class, you can subscribe to the recording through YouTube or DVD or MP3, so it's up to you. Come and enjoy, listen to the lectures, and get uplifted. So that's a wonderful way to just start learning about the higher worlds. If you want a little bit more information and deeper information and involvement, then read the corresponding chapter before and after the lecture. Read it. The chapters are full of information. I'm certainly not going to cover every single item in each chapter, but I will highlight and summarize and help you reframe it and understand it. So read the chapter. If you want to go even deeper, you'd like to study these materials in a deep way, teach in the future, mentor people, or you are already a mentor and a counselor, then take the 5-year course that corresponds with these seminars. And that involves a little bit more reading, question and answer, and so on. So you can choose your own way. It's up to you. Whatever you decide is fine with me. And it's up to what kind of time you have, and what kind of interest, and what kind of depth that you want to go into this topic. Okay? So that's my basic introduction. And let me now start with our first hour. So during this first hour, it's called fully Class 201, Lesson 1, and the topic is Other Worlds. I will take this information from the introduction in the book Other Worlds and Chapter 1. So in case you want to read those are my sources of information. In this hour, I will cover why are we studying the other worlds. Okay. Number 2, I will cover what are the other worlds. What are the names of the different levels of existence so we are clear and comfortable with the words, with the vocabulary? So we are learning vocabulary too as we go through these seminars. What puts us in contact with the worlds beyond the physical? So we're going to look at those practices, inner attitudes, inner understanding, so we have a very clear path to being conscious of the other worlds. What is the result of contact? How is the best way to study this topic, other worlds? And then I will do an ending exercise and summary for us, just to get you started to think. Now, whether you are conscious or aware of this or not, you are probably every minute in contact with higher worlds. Because the worlds are not separated. We think they're separated because we don't have what is called in ageless wisdom continuity of consciousness. When we have the continuity of consciousness, let's take that to the ultimate goal of what we want and take it all the way to the end of the 5-year program, for example. We want to have continuity of consciousness. What does that mean? That means that your senses, your 5 senses, are able to work and interact and sense in the emotional planes, mental planes, and higher planes. Then you are completely awake on any level. That is the ultimate goal that we want. That is what is called mastery. Is it possible? Of course it is. So during these classes, we are going to sensitize ourselves to this daily contact that we have and not fill it with falseness or misinformation, but really watch and observe how the higher worlds are constantly guiding us and helping us in so many ways. Now, we have 7 levels of existence in this planetary life. And these are the names that are given to these 7 levels of existence. Every single atom, cell, body, heavenly body has a level of consciousness. Just so put that frame in your mind first. Everything has a consciousness. And different planes of existence form aggregates of consciousness, as varied as the sands on the ocean. And think of consciousness as ripples that grow from a limited physical consciousness into cosmic consciousness. So every single layer has a consciousness that we can match. And when we match that consciousness, we become what we are called continuity of consciousness. So in our work in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, what we are fundamentally doing is raising and growing our consciousness so that we are able to communicate all the way to as high as we want to go. And that's possible for us, perhaps thousands of more lifetimes, but it's possible. And that's what we are doing, aren't we? We are trying to become conscious about our physical existence by watching cause and effect. We are looking at our emotional existence by watching our cause and effect. What makes us happy? What makes us unhappy? What makes us sad? What makes us strive and not give up? So we're trying to understand that consciousness, that level, that aggregate of emotional consciousness. What happens when the whole world is going through turmoil and crises and we hook into that? Have you ever done that? Yes, of course you have. We hook into that emotional aggregate of feelings. What about thoughts? Great thoughts that are all over the world that people pick up in different parts of the world, and they come up with that same vision, that same thought, that same idea that started maybe in one end of the world and also had its corresponding thought in another part. What are we doing? We're hooking into that consciousness of the mind. So think of all of these as levels of consciousness that you want to reach by raising yourself to that level. Okay? And that's what we are going to do. We are going to become keenly aware using our 5 senses by observation, by thinking, by meditating, by studying, by really observing keenly. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? So you are looking not just something as flat and one-dimensional, but you are using your senses in multi-dimensions. Can you do that? Of course you can. People who are trained in music have multi-dimensional ability to hear, don't they? People who can think deeply about scientific topics have ways of looking at cause and effect that a non-scientifically trained person probably doesn't even pick up. People who are great artists know such a subtle variations in color, and they're able to look at color immediately and distinguish immediately, right? What about fabric? I worked with fabric for over 25 years, and I can visually look at a piece of fabric and know what it's made up of, because I know how it should feel and I know what it should look like. And then when you put it on, of course, you know immediately what it's made up of, right? So these are all sensitivities. What about the sensitivity of common sense? Common sense is not so common. It is the logical mind using the reality-based thinking, not just made up things, but reality. You say, get real. That's common sense. What about a higher vibration from that? The ability to discern, to discriminate between right and wrong. These are all senses. So you could smell more keenly, touch more keenly, see more keenly, just by using your 5 or plus 2, 7 senses. Now imagine when you are able to take that on the emotional level and you can feel the emotions, not so quickly though. You don't want to open that part until you know how to shut it off, right? And then the thoughts. When you're able to really penetrate into the consciousness of the mental realms and be able to go through these under your own willpower. It is really, really beautiful. So we want to know very clearly what happens when we meditate, what is the structure, what happens when we pray, what happens when we die, what happens, how do we take birth, what is that process? It's fascinating. And what happens when we sleep? What happens when people are in deep contemplation and they are sitting right here and they're able to be in anywhere in the world? Does that happen? Yes, we've heard of those things happening. They've been recorded, they've been written about by great yogis, by great teachers. So we are going to think, what happens when I conquer something? When I overcome something? What happens when I am so full of joy and able to sustain that joy? What kind of healing takes place? So these are all we are going to learn about the higher world. Okay? So this is very, very important so that we are not trapped in the material world. We are not trapped in the emotional world. We are not trapped in our mental fabrications. Why is that important? Take a look at the world condition. That's why it's important. The world is in deep turmoil, and we need to see what's behind these turmoils so that we don't lose faith and hope. Do you agree with that? Because when we look everywhere, it looks pretty bad. But what's behind it? The great ones tell us there's a plan, there's a purpose, there's a direction. Well, what is it? I would sure like to know, so I don't lose hope and faith. So these are things that we develop as we develop the ability to communicate with a higher consciousness. Now, the teachers of the ageless wisdom, especially in the last 100 years, gave us a new form of process and content to take humanity from one level to another. What level are we in? Many, many years, thousands of years ago, human beings were just blobs. We were just blobs. And so a lot of yogas and information was given so that the energy body and the physical body coalesce and they come together. Then we went to the next level to develop our emotional bodies, and that's the Atlantean times. And now we are given the opportunity, the content and the process to develop the higher mind, not just the lower mind. The lower mind is already developed, and that is the cause of all our problems that we see now. It's separative. It's mine and yours. It's how can I get ahead at somebody else's expense. That's what's happening. So you can see by looking at the world, what do we need? We need to lift the consciousness of humanity, and it starts with us, to the higher mind, to the ideal that there is a unity in the universe, that there is a love that overrides everything, that there is a possibility to share everything that we have. Isn't that what we want? So when you think about the problems, go logically and search in your heart, because you know the answer inside of you. The other worlds are inside of you. Okay? So the great ones gave us these teachings to take us away from materialism, away from astral focus, away from the logic and the imprisonment of the lower logical mind, and into the higher mind. That is where the teachings for the last 100 years are taking us, to go to the higher mind and start thinking deeply, clearly connected with the hearts and souls of everyone, of the life itself on our planet. Okay? Think about these things and how important they are. Now let's look at a map. And I like maps, and I had our illustrator create a map. Of course, this is just flat, but I want you to imagine it. Okay, what are the words that we will encounter in these readings? Now this is, as you can see, 7 layers. It was the same as before, but in squares now. And in each layer, we have 7 sub-layers. Okay, these are important as we go to the next seminar, so we know what is it that exists in these levels. I will go over those in quite a lot of detail in next month's seminar. But just to have that map in your mind, that there are many levels of existence, and where are we now? Look where we're existing. I mean, it's when you look at the map, you realize, wow, how much there is, and how little I am existing in, and how limited. Yet I have this sense inside of me of something more, and that's where I want to go. I don't want to be just happy in the emotional ups and downs and traumas and dramas. I don't want to just think myself, my nation, my family. I want to go beyond that. I want to go global. I want to go planetary. And so this map is going to help you frame that. So what are the words, the terms? Physical etheric is that first layer. Etheric means energy body. It's the energy surrounding us. So that's the first realization you're going to come to, that you are not just flesh and bones, that there's an energy system continuously going in and out of your body. You've studied this, you know this. Then there is the emotional plane, sometimes called astral. And this, in the higher world terminology, is called subtle world with no S. So when you say subtle world, it's the world of emotions. Okay? And as you know, emotions are multi-layered. We have sublime, beautiful emotions, and then we have toxic emotions. So think of these things. The lower you get and closer you get to the physical plane, the more material it becomes, the more self-serving and self-saving it becomes, which in that virtue of love becomes, for example, jealousy and separatism. Do you see how it works? So it's not that the emotions of human beings are bad, it just depends what they're served for. How are you using them? So that is called subtle world. Now the mental world starts this, see this dark part? From the mental plane, the higher mental plane, see the top part, 1, 2, 3, and higher, is called the fiery world. That's where we want to go. Okay? The fiery worlds. We don't want to be in the watery worlds. We want to be in the fiery worlds. That's our next stage of unfoldment for humanity. We've already done these. Now we want to go to the next. So it's called fiery worlds, from the higher mind up. And I will give you lots of detail about these worlds as we unfold. Other terminologies. What are subtle worlds with an S? Subtle worlds is the name given to any level of existence above the physical plane. Okay, so you're not confused when you're reading the book. What is that? What is that? So subtle worlds with an S is anything that is non-material, non-physical. Okay, so those are your terms. These are the things that you are going to come across over and over and over. Okay. Next section is how do we interact with the higher worlds. I like to call all of this just with the one word, higher worlds, because it's easy for me to remember. Higher worlds is anything beyond the physical world. Okay? How do we interact? Every day when you pray, what are you doing? You are praying for some non-physical help or understanding, right? You're asking for guidance, for enlightenment, for clarity. And so what are you doing? You are putting yourself in touch with non-physical energies and asking for clarity, for help, for guidance, for healing, whatever. You're lifting your heart every time you pray. So every time you do that, every time you say a mantra, you are putting yourself in contact with the higher world. And the more focused you say your prayer, the more you are going to link and have that line coming from your heart to the higher worlds. So when you go in a deep devotional prayer, that is what you're doing. You are communicating with a different level of consciousness. Another way we contact the higher world is through deep meditation. And we're not talking about mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation, relaxation, is just the beginning to get you ready. The seed thought meditation, where you take a seed thought and you analyze it and you look at the reality and all the multiple levels of meaning, is training you to go to the higher mind, to the fiery worlds. That is why it is so important. It is the destiny of humanity now to learn seed thought occult meditation. Okay? So, and we will experience that and experiment with that as we go on. It is also called deep thinking, when you are resolving problems, facing crises, looking how to creatively change your life. You are really getting in touch with these fiery spheres. Okay? You are not just going to cover up and say, oh, what can I do to cover this embarrassment? You are looking for resolutions. When you're looking for resolutions, you are in contact with the fiery worlds. So always remember that. You are in touch with that fiery, moving, energetic part of life when you are genuinely interested in resolving problems. Okay? Creatively. Not same old, but creatively. For example, sometimes we solve problems by applying the same stuff that we learned from our moms and dads in our culture. That's not fiery worlds. That's already been done. You're going to go beyond that. Push yourself. So every time you do that, you are in touch with the fiery worlds. When you are asleep in a beautiful, proper way, you can go to any level of the higher worlds depending on what's your equipment. And we'll talk about that too. All depends on your equipment and how you're prepared. There are lots of ways to prepare for sleep so that you can not only experience higher worlds, but remember them. Okay? Because we're always experiencing. The problem is we don't remember. We don't have that link made. So these ways of linking to the fiery worlds actually strengthens that link. Let me show you what that looks like on a map. I love maps. And let's see where it is. Okay, is it here? Yes, it's this one. There it is. Okay, look at this map. You can have copies of these, no problem, okay? So here's your mental body. Okay, look at this, 1, 2, 3. This is the fiery plane that you want to go to. This is where you are conscious. This is right now where we are. We're conscious. We're listening, I'm talking, we're thinking. But as you go deeply and you have that aha moment, catch that it's the fiery world that's coming to you. Okay, when you go, oh, I get it. It's a spark that happens. It's just like a spark plug sparking in your mind and saying, I get it. This is our destiny. We are taking, look at this little dotted line. We are connecting our conscious mind, where we operate every day. We drive, we eat, we dress, we do all the logical things that people do. We are going to connect that to something higher, and that is how we create that link, that bridge called the Antakarana, that bridges us to being conscious to the other worlds. When we sleep, when we meditate, when we contemplate, in waking hours even, when this line is made up and you start moving toward the other line, you are conscious all the time, of all levels. Not just bothered like low-level psychics with all this mumbo-jumbo. You are able to turn it on and turn it off. You know where you need to go. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so this is very important. Your daily activities, problem solving, all of that is going to take you to that fiery world. If you are ready with that knowledge and that training and that consciousness, when you die, your soul travels to the fiery worlds. It doesn't stop anywhere in between. And if it does, it's just temporary rest. And it keeps going to the fiery worlds. This is what we want. When you incarnate again, you come back from the fiery worlds enriched and full of wisdom. Isn't that beautiful? So think about that. Think about all the daily activities that we do all the time, and how we can be even more conscious of what we do with the higher worlds. Okay? Now, what are the ways that the great ones tell us? What is that process through which we can build the ability to be in conscious contact with the higher worlds? There are, interestingly, two separate categories that encompass so much. And I really gave this a lot of thought. I thought, how come only two? You'd think there'd be a list this long. But these two contain everything. What's the first one? The first one is proper respond to crises. It's pregnant with information, isn't it? Intelligent response to crises, because that's the only way we learn. That's the only way we don't add any more karma. When we look at the crises in our life, whether they're big or small, whether they are personal, family, planetary even, ask ourselves, how do I respond to this crisis in a way that is going to put me in touch with the fiery worlds and develop that continuity? Intelligent response to crises. In order to do this, you have to have the discipline in your mind, the calmness of your emotions, your ability to get information and to think clearly. You're going to sharpen your senses. Is that really real? Am I just fabricating this? You're going to ask yourself these questions without trying to justify, without trying to make up things to make yourself feel better. You're going to be real clear about yourself. Does that make sense to you? Even if you're not clearly communicating with the other people, you are clear in yourself. This is so important. You're really sharp, practical, and slowly take one crisis after another, after the humiliation, the sadness, oh my gosh, I've been found out, whatever it is, no problem. Don't worry about it. It's there for a reason for you. In fact, the teaching tells us there'll come a time in our life when we will welcome crises and even make them. When I first heard that, I thought, I don't think so. Not me. I've got enough to deal with. But then I understand it now, because a crisis is just a game that you manufacture for yourself, jumping higher, jumping further, meditating more deeply. So think of how the crises in our life help us study, meditate, focus, manifest what is real, dig for the reality that's real inside of us, and find what? The eternity in us. When we lose someone, when somebody gets sick around us, when somebody suffers, what is it that gives you the healing that you need? Isn't it the sense of eternity? Isn't it? Think it's that eternity that keeps us going, isn't it? So this is what we are going to be trained, not just to say it's God's will, okay, fine, but you're really going to understand through solving crises, cause and effect, cause and effect. And look what happens. The more you solve problems, the less fresh karma you make. It gets easier. Huh? It gets easier. It's not such a drama every day. This is what we are told by the great ones, great teachers. That's the process. So you're going to solve the crises. So the next time any of us has a crisis, take a deep breath and just say, what do I need to learn from this, and what skills do I release from inside me that will help me deal with it? It doesn't mean you're not going to hurt. It doesn't mean you're not going to grieve. It's not going to mean you're not going to worry. That's human. We have all of those things, but you will overcome them through your fiery determination to solve it. Does that make sense to you? You're going to develop that. What's the second process? I love this. It's the Bear's 8 Songs, which is about honey, and this is about cultivating joy. Okay? There's no escaping to cultivating joy, because if you try to solve problems without the joy, oh boy, it becomes mechanical, or we become bitter, cynical, who cares, why bother, that kind of thing. But if you have joy, life becomes a lot more fun. So this is very, very important. Joy in our life is going to give us that memory, that faith and hope that things will get done. And I have complete faith in them. Because why? I have experienced it. I know. And joy, that cultivating joy, is going to release your capacity to go beyond crises and make it, no matter what happens. It is joy that makes us get through. Nothing else. Not logic and reasoning, it's joy. Another reason why joy is important is because it is going to lift humanity from emotional traumas. Humanity is in the middle of an emotional crisis and lower mind manufactured crisis. How do we lift that? Through joy. Joy brings us to be one with all that higher consciousness. When you have joy, you know you're geared in. You know you can do it. You know you can overcome. It is so important. It is not manufactured reality. It's not blah, blah, I'm happy. In joy, you can grieve. In joy, you can feel sad. Does that make sense? In joy, you can worry. But you resolve it and say, yes, I'm going through this dark tunnel of worry, sadness, grief, but joy is carrying me all the way through to the end, and I'm going to come out and learn even more. I can't emphasize the amount of work that joy takes and how worthy it is of the time you invest in it. We will come to a point where the teaching tells us we will sow beauty and harvest joy. Isn't that beautiful? Everything we do will come up joy. That beautiful sense of eternity in us. And there's no other way. It is so, so beautiful. So with these two methods, we sensitize ourselves to the higher worlds, and they contain a lot of information. So I want you to think about, what does it contain when we say cultivated joy? What does it contain when we say resolve crises skillfully and creatively in your life? Face them. Look what they contain, how much work they contain. Okay? To finish up this first hour, I have a few recommendations for all of us to remember as we study the other worlds. And I think these are really, really important. And the first one is, be confident that you are an eternal soul. Take my word for it, if nothing else makes sense. Okay, you are an eternal soul. Repeat that to yourself. And the life conditions that you find yourself in can be changed, improved, expanded, bettered in the way that you want. And that eternal sense inside of you, I want you to have faith in that. That is what's going to get you through crises, cultivate joy, because you are going to have that in your mind that it is possible. Number 2, don't be glamored by cheap, low-level psychics, mediums, and channels. Don't be caught by them, because they are so popular in the world. They make money, they manipulate, but even if they're well-meaning, what does it do? It keeps us trapped in the emotional plane. In Atlantean times, that's gone for thousands of years, and people are still stuck in those practices. Don't be glamored by them. People love quick recipes. Put this in the microwave and you get psychic. Put this in the, boil it for a minute and you can meditate. It just doesn't work that way. We know from experience that to change the physical and emotional and mental life takes work. It's like a beautiful, complicated recipe of a delicious dish that you make. Takes a lot of effort, thinking, planning, beautiful ingredients. That's what you're going to focus on. Don't be glamored by the cheap thrills that's offered in the world, and remove yourself from that emotionalism. Why is that? I have a real focus on this, is because I feel like we become dependent on somebody telling us how to live. I don't like that. We have a mind, we have a soul. You ask yourself. You can use the teachings as guidance, but ultimately you're going to find the truth yourself, how that applies to you. Okay? I don't like it when people go to fortune tellers, and if it's you're playing with it, okay. But seriously, you are going to not depend on anything but yourself, because you don't want to be manipulated. Okay, this is very important. Little bugs are put in our brains sometimes. You're going to be this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that, and then we make it happen. And then it's not what we want, and then we go for another one. It's not what we want, then we go for another one. Oh geez, so you're wasting time. You're giving of yourself, of your energy, of your psychic energy to somebody else. So this is very important for me, and I want you to remember. Number 3, don't cultivate fear of dark forces. Don't cultivate it. Do they exist? Yes. But they will not come to you unless you invite them. Okay? Your vibration is what attracts goodness, beauty, righteousness, and joy. It's your vibration. Make yourself of the best vibration you can find, and believe me, you're going to attract that to you. And when a crisis comes, you are going to be so armored and full of that armor of the great principles that you will fight and get over any challenge that comes to you. You will be able to face it. Okay? This is very important. I want you to think about it. Your best medicine are the 7 principles. You've heard this all over. Let's repeat them. That is your best shield, your best medicine. First one is what? Beauty. That's your shield. Make your shield out of beauty, out of goodness. Be righteous in everything that you do. Righteous. Cultivate joy and become free from addictions and dependencies. If you continuously strive to resolve problems and increase your joy, that's a huge principle. And the last one is serve, give, help. It's called sacrificial service. I remember Mother Teresa once saying to someone, "How much shall we give?" And she said, "Until it hurts. Until you feel that pinch." That's when you're hitting something inside of you. Oh, $1, $2, 1 day, 2 day. That's not enough of a pinch sometimes, is it? So you're going to look at that. How am I going to use those 7 medicines? Those are your medicines, your shield. You cultivate those. Don't worry about the dark forces. Okay? Don't succumb to fear. It is an infectious virus that goes around the world multiple times. Don't succumb to fear. Okay? Hierarchy is watching this planet. Your solar angel is watching you and guiding you. Don't succumb to fear. Okay? Number 5, when you're faced with difficulties, be grateful for the opportunity to cultivate joy and resolve the difficulty with wisdom. That's something that I have learned. It's a hard lesson. I don't do it 100% of the time, but when I do, when I just relax and say, how do I face this? Don't get angry and start mouthing off. Okay? Stay calm. This will give you the wisdom to connect with the higher worlds, because it's all around you if you just calm down and connect to that wisdom. And we will talk about some of the methods how to do that. Number 6, learn to observe your life in reality, real time. Okay? Not wishful thinking, real time, so that you can take it from where you are right now, true assessment, okay, to the next level, to the next level. Sequential, steady growth. This is what I like. And above all, remember, we are moving away. We are leaving behind the old cultural trappings, whether it's a personal culture, spiritual culture, family culture. You want to leave behind things that no longer work for you and go ahead to something new that you want to develop in you. That's how you find your essence of who you really are. Not just what somebody told you you are, but who you really are. What a beautiful thing that is, for us to become our true self. Questions or comments? Anyone? Okay. Look at your handout. The first one, questions to ponder on. Do you see that one? And we will take a little break. And during this break, take a break, but come back and try to answer these questions now or next week. But look at these questions, and it's a reality check for yourself. And for people who take the 5-year course, they have to do a complete questionnaire at the beginning of each year. So this is just getting your feet wet into the reality check. Okay, look at these questions and see how you would answer them. Okay? So we will take a little break now, and we will come back for the second hour. If you have no questions or comments. Did you enjoy this class? Good. Okay, so thank you very much. Let us close our eyes and just let all this information settle. Take a deep breath and just release. Try to remember a few things of what I said. See if you can remember them, bring them down. Something that really you loved, that you'd like to take home with you. Take a deep breath. Let's say one Om together just to release this pent-up information in us. Deep breath. Well done. Thank you.